Hey, come sit with me for a minute. There's a story I've been carrying, and tonight feels right. I was halfway through the second chorus when a man in the front row grabbed the guy next to him by the collar and lifted him clean out of his seat. Wait, what nobody understood yet was that the man doing the lifting weighed 140 pounds, and the man dangling from his fist was pushing 280. Saturday night at the Silver Mirror Room, full house. I had the band cooking and the lights warm, that amber glow that turns every face into somebody you'd want to know. I noticed a few things walking on. A woman at table 9 with a hat that deserved its own zip code, and a folded piece of paper on my piano, next to the water glass. Old fight card, names and dates in faded ink. I set it down without a second thought. Write in the comments, where are you listening to this story from, and what time is it right now? The room was humming along, and I was rolling through the set, holding the mic loose, talking between verses, keeping it warm. That's when I noticed him. Front row, aisle seat, young guy, mid-20s, compact build, black shirt, no flash, perfectly still while everyone else clapped and swayed, hands on his knees like carved wood, not clenched. Ready? Next to him sat the biggest man in the room, wide shoulders, pinky ring catching the light, laughing too loud at the wrong parts of my jokes. I didn't like him. Something about the way he filled that seat, like a man used to taking more space than he deserved. I finished the number and leaned into the mic. You know, some of you are laughing so hard, I'm starting to think you came for the comedy, not the music. The room loved it. I scanned the crowd, gave table 3 a wink, but my eyes kept coming back to the front row. The young guy hadn't moved. Not one sip of water, not one shift in his seat. He watched the stage the way a man watches a door he's about to walk through. I had 6 songs left. That number is going to matter. I eased into the next one, something slow. The woman at table 9 tilted her hat at me like a salute. The bartender, a new kid, was polishing the same glass over and over the way nervous people do. I could feel the heat of the lights on my forehead and smell cigarette smoke drifting in from the lounge. The Silver Mirror Room had a thrust stage. It jutted into the audience, front row, close enough to touch. Whatever was building was going to happen right under my lights. 1-5s, 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 1-5s. Between numbers, I called Eddie, my stage manager, to the wing. Eddie, who's the young guy, front row left. Bruce Lee, booked the seat 3 weeks ago, paid cash. 3 weeks? 3 weeks. And the big one next to him is Victor Tully. Here every Saturday. Compad. I let that sit. 3 weeks of planning. Cash. A reserved seat next to a man who came every Saturday. That's not a coincidence, pal. That's a chess move. Now let me tell you about Victor, because this doesn't make sense without him. Victor Tully ran a private boxing circuit out of back rooms and 3 casinos. Not the legitimate kind. Fighters signed contracts they couldn't read. Checks bounced before bruises healed. He was the sort of man who smiled with all his teeth and none of his eyes. 5 songs left. I swung into the next number, keeping my gaze moving, but inside I was running calculations behind the lyrics. Victor was on his 4th drink now, getting louder. Every time he laughed, that big, ugly laugh, Bruce sat a little stiller. I leaned into the mic between verses. You know, I can see every one of you from up here. Some of you are having the time of your lives. Some of you look like you're waiting for something. I said that looking right at Bruce. He didn't blink. One of sons there sat on his sofa, the brusen tread froze. The spotlight was hot on my face, and I could feel sweat starting at my temples. Not from the lights. I pushed into the next song harder than I needed to, letting the brass fill the spaces where my confidence should have been. The room was swaying, the band was tight, and for a few minutes I almost convinced myself it was a normal Saturday. But the young man's stillness was patience, and Victor's growing loudness was ignorance, and the distance between those two things was closing with every song. Zuet shrillens. I think with it brode her notsud. I finished the number and took a breath. The air in the Silver Mirror Room tasted like expensive perfume and old cigarette smoke and something else I couldn't name, the metallic taste of anticipation. I talked to the room a little, the way I do, told them about a time I forgot the words to my own song in Atlantic City, got the laughs, kept them warm, but I was watching the front row the whole time. Victor ordered another drink. Bruce didn't move. 4 songs left. I noticed something nobody else would have caught. Bruce's right thumb had started tapping against his knee. Slow, rhythmic, not to the music, to something inside his own head, some internal clock counting down to a moment only he knew about. I leaned into the mic. You're a quiet crowd tonight in the front row. That's all right. The quiet ones are usually the dangerous ones. The room chuckled. Bruce didn't. Before I go on, you need to know something about me. I had a rule since my first gig in Steubenville. You never step off the stage during a performance. Never. The stage is your territory. You leave it, you give control to the room. In 22 years of performing, I had never broken that rule. I eased into the next number, a quiet ballad. I dedicated it to the couple at table 3. The room softened. A woman in the back wiped her eyes.
I looked at the front row, and for 1 second, just one, I thought Bruce's shoulders had relaxed.
I thought maybe whatever was wound up inside him had loosened. I was wrong. Burrisivo Sordals had relaxed. 3 songs left. The band hit the bridge, and I closed my eyes for 2 seconds. When I opened them, Bruce was on his feet. No warning, just vertical. His left hand caught Victor's collar below the jaw and lifted him. Both shoes off the ground. Chair scraped and fell. Victor's face went white. The woman beside them pressed into her seat. But here's what I caught. Bruce's expression didn't change. Not one muscle. He was lifting a man twice his weight, like picking up a briefcase. By Jenny's path and one free. I kept singing. The music is a net. You drop it over the room when things crack. Keep playing, I told Jimmy on drums. Jimmy nodded. You force. The room froze. I could hear ice from Victor's glass sliding across marble. Bruce spoke, low, controlled. Whatever he said, Victor went limp. Bruce set him down and sat back, hands on knees, eyes on me. I finished the song, made a joke.
I knew my singing was powerful, but the weightlifting component is new.
Laughs. Then I slid into Volare and Bruce stood again. His right hand came up, open palm, hovering like a blade. Victor flinched. His glass hit the floor, shattered.
Freak force, weighty side hevel skigit. Now it but days beard, situads, forces, no de nield not be xader, no dio de gut fenem stoethade.
Bruce's voice cut through the silence. Stand up! Victor shook his head. I said, stand up, Mr. Tully. Victor stood, knees shaking. I set the mic down, gently, and broke my rule. I stepped off the stage. I walked toward them, hands open.
Hey, pal, let's take a breath.
Bruce looked at me like he was reading the last page of a book.
This doesn't concern you, Mr. Martin. It's my room, kid.
Victor tried to slide past. One finger. Bruce pressed it against Victor's chest. Victor stopped like he'd hit a wall. That scared me. Not the violence. There was none. It was the control. One finger pinning a man 140 pounds heavier. Security moved in. Bruce cooperated, straightened his shirt, nodded at me, let them walk him out. The room exhaled. Victor sank into a chair. A waitress brought him a fresh drink with hands that trembled slightly. I climbed back on. Ladies and gentlemen, the entertainment will now return to its regularly scheduled programming. Real laughs. Band kicked in. I sang the next number like nothing had happened, and for a while the room believed it. Victor sat very still in his new chair, staring at the tablecloth like it owed him money. The woman at table 9 had stopped tilting her hat. Everyone was breathing again, smiling again, and I almost let myself believe the worst was over. Then Eddie appeared at the wing, gray-faced. He's backstage, Dean. Went through the service corridor. He's outside your dressing room. Why? Says he has something that belongs to you. 2 songs left. I finished the set, took the bow, walked off. The backstage corridor was narrow, cement walls painted white. Bruce stood by my dressing room, arms at sides. He looked young back here, tired. I apologize for the disruption, Mr. Martin. Kid, disruption is requesting that's amore 5 times. What you did was a different category. Victor Tully destroyed my father's career, clean as a knife. My father was a martial arts instructor, school on 4th Street 11 years ago. Tully offered exhibition fights, fixed the outcomes. When my father refused to fall, Tully made calls, school gone in a month, and he never taught again? Never. I leaned against the wall. You came to my show for this. Tully never misses your Saturday show. Your stage was the one place I knew exactly where he'd be. That's when it hit me. Bruce hadn't used my show for violence. He'd used it as a stage, wanted Victor humiliated in front of a full house, the same way his father was humiliated in a back room. Theatrical. Brilliant. Is it done? Bruce pulled out a folded paper, old, creased, a fight card. At the bottom, Victor Tully, promoter, next to a clause about corrective measures at the promoter's discretion. That's the contract my father signed. He didn't understand corrective measures until it was too late. Eddie came back. Victor wants to press charges. Tell him I'll be there in a minute. I looked at Bruce. Give me the paper. Why? Because I know people Tully is afraid of. Bruce hesitated. First time all night. This wasn't just evidence. It was the last thing connecting his father's pain to proof. A dim corridor. Me in a stage jacket with sweat cooling. A kid who could put me through a wall, and he was the scared one, scared of letting go of the one piece of proof that his father's story was real. He handed it over. Hand steady, eyes not. Wethercool 3, 61 years old. He can't close his right hand because of what they did after the fourth fight. Third line, faded ink, and next to the name in pencil, refused handle. 2 words. That's all it took to end a man's career and break his hand. I looked at the piano through the fire door, the fight card I'd picked up before the show, and sat down like it was nothing. You put that on my piano. Yes, sir, I needed you to see it. I put the card inside my jacket, against my chest. I'll make the calls tomorrow. Not a favor, the right thing. Your father, is he here? In the car. He didn't want to come in. Why? He's ashamed. Thinks he should have fought harder. Thinks losing his school means he failed. Something twisted in my chest. I know what shame does. How it sits in your ribs and tells you everything you built was a lie. Go get him. Sir? Tell him Dean Martin wants to buy him a drink and hear about his school. Bruce's jaw tightened, shoulders dropped. He wasn't holding back anger. He was holding back the kind of emotion young men are taught to swallow, the kind that hits when someone treats your father with dignity. 3 glasses that night, the good bottle. James walked in with a limp and the quietest handshake I've ever felt. His right hand couldn't grip, but his eyes were sharp, full of intelligence that doesn't come from books. For 45 minutes, we talked about everything except Victor. Teaching and discipline, strength and control. James told me about a student with no coordination who trained 2 years and won a regional title. His eyes lit up. That was the man Tully tried to erase. Before they left, James held my hand longer. Mr. Martin, he said, voice cracking. Just Dean. Dean, thank you for listening. That's all he needed. 2 calls the next morning. A lawyer who knew what to do with a contract that said handle. A gentleman who owned 3 hotels where Tully ran fights. Wednesday shut down, Friday gone. I never saw him again. The fight card is still in my desk. I keep it because the most important things look like nothing. A folded paper on my piano, a kid in the front row, a father in a car too ashamed to walk through the door. That's the story, pal. Some nights the real performance happens in the front row, or backstage, or in a dressing room with 3 glasses and a man who can't close his right hand. If this stayed with you, tell me in the comments. I've got other nights, stranger, harder. You want them, you know where to find me.